Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I'm Aaron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast, where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Derek Crager. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Aaron. Appreciate you inviting me aboard today. And hello, everybody.
Awesome. Why don't you just start us off by just telling me a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you, Aaron. I am on the spectrum myself. I actually lived about 5 decades. I'm 58 today. Today's my birthday, Aaron. And
Happy birthday.
thank you, thank you. I did not have a diagnosis until I was 50, and when I did, I cried for 2 weeks straight, and then I embraced it. But the 5 decades living up to that, Aaron, were just tough. I grew up out in the country a bit, country folk, and working, with our hands. Not a lot of people knew even what to look for on, what we call neurodiversity today. So
Yep.
I tried to deal with that the best I can through school, socializing, sports, work, and ultimately, I'm still here and I'm enjoying the day in the life. So appreciate you asking.
Yeah, for sure. What prompted you to seek a diagnosis, or how did that process work for you?
Well, I think that all of us feel we're unique, and we are. And I think it was the breadth of information that's out there, not so much searching from a clinical side, but searching more of looking for my people, hearing stories, and then tracking down those stories. I don't know. I feel like it's maybe the 1600s. I'm searching through, trying to find my people, and I ultimately found them, but it was a long road. So the internet and different communities is, I just started listening in and reading and started participating a little bit here, a little bit there. And then I found myself identifying and aligning with the stories that were told, and ultimately telling similar stories myself. So I thought, well, I don't know, and I like to know things. I like to know definitively yes or no, black and white, 1 and 0 type of thing. So it was the unknowing that caused a lot of anxiety. So it was I was 50, and I reached out and had some tests. So I did multiple tests and had some interviews. So it wasn't a, hey, yep, I recognize, yeah, you're autistic. Right. It was a process. So
yeah,
I had a good counselor and therapist, psychologist I worked with.
I've had a number of I'm guests on the podcast now where they, such as yourself, later in life were diagnosed, and many of the stories it came about because like maybe their child or somebody else in their family was diagnosed with autism, and once they started looking into it and started recognizing things in their own life, they did the testing and were diagnosed. So it's kind of interesting how it works out.
Yeah, looking back, I don't know if we knew this back when, or at least I wasn't cognizant of it. But my dad's side of the family, we have a high incident rate of autism, and unfortunately, we also have a high incident rate of suicide, because when you feel different, you can't connect, and
Right.
you're in the sticks, which a lot of my dad's people were. They put up or shut up is just a little harsh, for an 8-year-old type of thing. So I knowledge is power. So shows like yours, Aaron, help everybody involved.
Yeah, thank you. What is your definition of inclusion?
Inclusion. This is a good one. I spent time working at Amazon, and I had a supervisor that I worked for. I took part in a lot of the mental health awareness and neurodiverse groups that were kind of after hours, and DEI, which unfortunately is kind of getting pushed to the side lately. But inclusion, it was taught to me that inclusion is well, let's see, diversity is inviting somebody to the dance, and inclusion is dancing with them. Right. So it's not just making sure you have numbers, it's actually embracing and engaging across boundaries. That's my definition of inclusion. I want to thank Kim Chavez for that. Fortunately, she's no longer with us, but she's a wonderful woman.
Yeah, thank you. I love that. So we talked a little bit about you receiving your diagnosis. Can you maybe go into like once you received it, how did that impact your professional direction and that part of it?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. It's before I received the diagnosis, I was already working at Amazon. I spent about half a decade there, and so 3 months into my tenure at Amazon, I was like on the edge to get fired because of a conversation that went sideways. You know, intent and impact is a thing in communication realm. And there's a book out by Ludmila Prozolov called The Canary Code, and she mentions in there that autistics are twice as likely for people to think they're lying when they're just telling the truth and being factual. So that can, if it starts tripping us up, up front, it's like a death spiral. I can't get out of it. So my time at Amazon, I was almost exited Amazon within 90 days, but luckily I changed teams, got onto a learning program, actually ended up teaching communication and leadership values and onboarding programs. And once I got my diagnosis, Aaron, I embraced it. After that 2-week time where I just, cried, part of pain relief, part of just like, wow, for so long in the past. But I embraced my diagnosis, and I put in my email tagline that two things. I was diagnosed autistic, the Asperger's variety, ADHD, a diagnosis, and dyslexia, which I didn't even know I was dyslexic. I just thought I read slow. But I put taglines at the bottom of my email for corporate company, and I just said, hey, I use dyslexic font because it helps me read, and then a disclaimer, and I also had a disclaimer, I'm autistic, so what I say might sound different than what you hear, so if there's any inconsistency, just tap me on the shoulder and ask me, and we'll work through it. But from that point on, my time actually excelled. I was leveraging my superpowers as being autistic, and it really helped me in my career.
Yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned something I hadn't heard before, dyslexic font. What is dyslexic font?
Okay. So during the pandemic, I started reading, and I picked up a Kindle, the little Amazon device with digital font. And I read, and then they had an option on there that said open dyslexic font. I thought, well, what's this? Because, I like to press all the buttons and see what lights go off. And I clicked that open dyslexic font, and it changed the font type on the screen. And Aaron, it was like a magic button. Suddenly I was consuming books at 3 times my normal rate. Back in grade school, high school, anytime I had a book assignment or a book report, I never, ever had I ever finished a book. I would always look for those Cliff's notes that give you a short story and try to do a report from that. Sometimes I winged it well, and sometimes I not so well. But I've always had trouble reading, and it's I see the letters jumping around, and I thought it was just a mechanical twitch in my eye. But the open dyslexic font, and there's a couple of them out there. There's some that are free, and there's some that you can pay for, just like everything in life. And the open dyslexic font, the reason it works, my psychological understanding from this lay perspective here, is that the letters look like candles that are melted, and the bottoms are heavy. So because the bottoms are heavy, psychologically, it anchors them from toppling over or jumping around. So it's the weight of and proportion of the font that allows our mind to stick to the paper rather than jumping around. So open dyslexic font, there is options out there. You can download it for your computer on Windows or Macintosh. You can add it to your mobile phone. I think that it's built into the Kindle. I don't remember how I onboarded on the Kindle, but those three options, they're out there and available. And there's the Open Dyslexic font. I say it's free, but it's donationware. So if you think it's a good value, kick in $5, $10, $20, whatever, because it contributes to the cause.
Yeah. Thank you for providing that clarification. That's interesting. What inspired you to build Practical AI and AI for Autistics.com, and how do these platforms serve the neurodivergent community? Sorry.
Yeah, Aaron. Practical AI was essentially a hobby. It's something I just started. AI is the big headline this year and last year. And the reason I got into AI is because I see a strong resemblance to how the internet wave hit. They called it technology wave. And those of us that's been around long enough, the internet started for the consumer side in about 1989. Pardon me. By 1990, I was already on the internet. I had one of those little tilde directories off Syracuse University, which I never went to Syracuse, but somehow I got a tilde. And I put up a business site, CJ Sports, and I sold Super Bowl hats and shirts and shorts to 5 different continents around the world. And so from 1990 to 1993, I sold this product out there on the internet. And before the internet, we used to just dial up BBSs, and it'd be like one person at a time, sometimes two if it was a double line BBS, but it was one phone call per telephone line. So that was my experience on the early part of the internet wave. And I contribute my AI interest today due to my ignorance back in the early 90s, because I had a distributor tell me that they discovered this internet thing in 1993. And they wanted to sell their product, and I couldn't sell their product anymore. So instead of arguing, because we're not argumentative people, instead of arguing, I just said, what, buy my inventory and I'll close shop, because get this, I thought I had saturated the market. As silly as that sounds today, back in 1993, I just closed up shop. I kind of put my head down and stuck in the sand for a few years. And it wasn't until I heard an interview with Jeff Bezos where they asked him why he wanted to sell on the internet. He said, well, the internet is growing at 20,000% a year. And it's like, wow, 20,000% a year. That is definitely huge. And this was still in the 90s. So my ignorance of that kept me out of the internet wave. And it really wasn't even until 2006 when mobile phones started having browsers, we call these smartphones, where literally everybody in the world could get on the internet with a telephone. So looking back on all that, with tongue-in-cheek regret, I'm not emotional over it, but I'm just a bit sorry that I didn't ride the wave. So this time, Aaron, I grabbed my surfboard. I see this internet wave is now reflected as a artificial intelligent wave, and it's like 1993 all over again. So I look forward to artificial intelligence growing with us, and it's probably going to be 15 years before it's really sinks in and takes hold like the internet did. It was 2006 before it really took hold. So I see that this time from a perspective of rose-colored glasses looking backwards, but looking forwards, how the investment's going this way and the alignment with the internet wave is so much. I just wanted to stick around. I'd get started, grab my surfboard and surf this one out. So that's how I get into the artificial intelligence side of practical AI today, Aaron.
Yeah. How do these platforms serve the neurodivergent community?
That's a real good question. You asked me earlier about the AI for Autistics.com community that I have. And in that, AI stands not just for artificial intelligence, but I view AI as autistic individual. So the way I see And the way I've built a community for it to leverage AI is, one, we have conversations just about everyday things. Hey, I use ChatGPT for this. I use Claude for that. I use Perplexity for something else. We talk about how we can leverage. I'm a Google Gmail person, so Google has their Gemini model, and they actually built it right in with their platform. So what I've learned to do in the old days, I would receive an email and I would respond out of emotion, and I would say things that I didn't intend, and it would come off as harsh as whoever interpreted it as. So today, what I do when I get an email that is sensitive, I'll go ahead and run it through Gemini on Gmail, or copy and paste to GPT, or Copilot. I mean, all of these are good. And I'll say, okay, tell me the meaning and the intent and the action behind this email coming in. And then that helps me understand it. And then once I understand it, I type a response. And the old days, it was used to be, we'd say, before you respond, wait 24 hours to give our mind time to catch up and settle down. So I throw my response into AI, and I ask it to evaluate it and give me pointers and rewrite it even. So even when it rewrites it entirely, I look at it and I make sure it's my intent. And it's not been a negative. It's always been a, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting.
So that's one way we use tools. Now the community specifically, because of its technology, it's possible today to program, to code websites, mobile applications, software applications using artificial intelligence without knowing a lick of programming. You don't need to know Python. You don't need to know Java. You don't need to know, and just fill in the blank for all of them that just run down. It's actually possible using AI today on these platforms and tools that have been created to just speak something. I mean, it almost feels biblical here. Speak it into existence.
Right.
So I teach people how to use those tools, because a lot of us that are autistic, we can't connect with groups, so that makes it hard to be employed. I think we have the highest unemployment rates out there. So this is a way for them, all of us, to leverage the AI tools to learn how to build our own business. We can create web pages for the local business and make some money. We can create apps and put it on the app stores and make some money. And all of it is just talking to the computer and coming up with the result. And it's been good for me. I know it's really been good for me, and I see a lot of people that it's really been good for them too. It feels like they have a support person, somebody that's always in their corner, which you and I both know that's not always the case growing up different.
Yeah, for sure. That's great. Your tool PocketMentor combines AI with real-world industrial use. Can you share how it works and how it empowers neurodivergent individuals in the workplace?
Yeah, absolutely, Aaron. So PocketMentor is a result. It's our flagship product for my company, Practical AI. And what PocketMentor is, it's literally, you take your phone, it fits in your pocket. That's the way we've been carrying it. But PocketMentor, it's not an app. It does not need internet. You don't need a tablet or a laptop or a computer to run PocketMentor. PocketMentor is a voice AI. It comes through as a friendly, patient, helpful, caring mentor on the other end of a telephone call. So in a situation, let's say I'm 14 years old and I'm changing the brakes of my car for the first time, and today I can pull up YouTube, how to change brakes on a 1971 Mustang, right? And it could give me the how-to, and it could walk through it A to Z or 1 to 10. But what happens when real life doesn't follow the guidebook, whether it's a YouTube video or a owner's manual, or a sheet that walks us through. So what PocketMentor does, it ingests all of the information on how to do something, a particular process, a particular role, and it's conversational. So when somebody starts on a new task, they just call up PocketMentor, and they can leave PocketMentor in their ears, just like you and I do when we're talking on the phone. It's a phone call, and they can ask PocketMentor. It says, "Hi, I'm Mike from PocketMentor. What are you working on today?" "Well, hey, I'm changing the brakes on," or "I'm studying for my math test tomorrow," or "I'm onboarding at a new company. And well, what's the first thing you'd like to know?" And it's just conversational. It answers questions, and it supports, and it asks questions. Well, what do you think about that? Or what do you see now? So it's a guide, it's a mentor, everything all in one. But what it is that humans aren't, even the best of us as humans aren't available 24/7, 365.
Right.
And humans don't scale. So PocketMentor takes the knowledge of the smartest human for whatever process that is, and is available 24/7, 365, and it can scale from one phone call at a time to 1,000 phone calls at a time. Everybody receives one-on-one instruction, one-on-one caring, one-on-one support. So that's the basics of PocketMentor, Aaron.
Wow, that's very. I love that. So is it something where, a company purchases a license and then all of their employees can call and it just comes to your stuff, or is it kind of built specifically for that company, or how does that part work?
It's built specifically for the company. We do not offer the knowledge itself. We believe that the companies and the organizations own the knowledge, and they still retain all ownership to the knowledge. What we do, we offer a new interface. I heard something today. There's in the web development, if you can get down to one click, then people will engage more. Like, for example, Jeff Bezos, he told his development team back in the 90s, "I want one-click purchase." And his development team says, "No, we can get it down to 11 clicks. And he said, "No, one click." And then they came back, "We can get 8 clicks, but that's it." Yep. It went back and forth until Amazon got the one-click purchase. Yep. And before that, Amazon was just a normal company. They were just an also-ran. They weren't bigger than anybody else out there. But once they got the one click, that was that differentiator. It was that singularity point in purchasing that all of a sudden, because of one click, how simple it was, Amazon as a company exploded. Google, with the simplicity of just having a single box as their website for search, they exploded because of the simplicity. So PocketMentor is offering the same thing. It's offering a chance to interface with all the data that's out there, and we put up guardrails so it only focuses on the data that you're seeking. That way we eliminate the hallucination effects that happen out in the wild. And it's for the company, yes, they do purchase a license and allow their employees to call, and they leverage it however they see fit, whether it's a onboarding, whether it's a specific operation, maybe how to run a machine. We also have one we call Connection HR, which allows individuals anonymously to talk to therapists, counselors, but these are AI therapists and counselors at work or for the job. It's sponsored by the company, but the company only receives the general data, no specific data. And then from this, they can gauge the happiness level of their employees. They can tell if there's a trend, maybe there was a change in the company, how did it affect the employees? It's a way of touching base. So it's like a paperclip. It's like I invented a paperclip, Aaron. It can connect so many things that it's difficult to narrow it down to just one. So I encourage everybody to brainstorm and throw ideas at me and just say, "Hey, what do you want to create next?"
Yeah, that's awesome. You often talk about pattern recognition as one of your strengths. How has that superpower shaped the way you approach both technology and inclusion?
Well, pattern recognition is something that a lot of autistics have ingrained. We see patterns instead of people, I think, is what kind of trips us up sometimes. When it comes to technology, anything that can be repeatable can be scaled and leveraged. So if we can recognize or create patterns with technology, then we can actually use it to our good and grow with it. Um, I sometimes feel that I'm an alien that's landed on Earth. I'm just observing the human race, and I see us smiling. Have you had a feeling like that before yourself, or heard
Yes.
that?
Yep.
Heard that story? Isn't it wild? It's like we're just here observing, like it's a big zoo. And AI, I mentioned earlier, AI has hallucination issues in the wild. It does, and if you can parallel that with autistics speaking in a conversation, when somebody else, a normative person, right, neural normal, talks to us and they ask us a question and we respond to the words in the question and it hits them wrong, it's because we responded to the words in the question, not whatever slang or tone or intonation
Right.
was there. So
Yep.
to them, it sounds like we gave them the wrong answer. But I think today, this hallucination effect with AI is forcing people across the world to be specific about the questions that they ask so
Mhm.
they can get the proper answer. And I really think it helps the cause, just everybody going through that process. They called it prompt engineering for a while.
Mhm.
If you ask the right question, you'll get the right answer.
Yeah, can you explain maybe a little bit briefly what you mean by hallucination thing?
Oh yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Well, in the wild, which is just at the command prompt for ChatGPT and
Sure. Yep.
Perplexity and Claude and all those, it's possible to ask a question and the response comes through something that doesn't even exist. It's made up sometimes,
Yep.
and the reason this happens in the wild is because these LLMs, these large language models, that each version of these AIs are trained on, they are literally trained with all the knowledge in the world. And the easiest way to access that knowledge is through the internet. So
Mhm.
now we can go back to when we make fun of the internet or we talk about the internet truth, because there's usually made up stories and headlines on the
Sure.
internet.
Yep.
And unfortunately, to the LLMs, they cannot discern what is truth versus fiction. So they're much like me as a young autistic youth. I didn't know the difference between truth and fiction when people tell
Yeah.
me something, and I looked like the odd duck. The same thing happens to AI. AI sees all this information and it tries to make sense of competing facts. So instead of just saying, well, there's too many competing facts, I would need more input, it just picks one
Okay.
because it's trained to pick one.
Mhm.
And it's trained to pick something that sometimes is maybe correct 86% of the time, other times it's correct 51% of the time, but it goes with the large number statistically. And it's possible that if when things are taken out of context, or maybe there is not enough context, that the answers that come back are inaccurate. And those inaccuracies there and have been dubbed hallucinations.
Okay. That makes sense. Thank you for that definition. There's something I came across recently on Facebook. There was a parent who, I guess now in schools, the schools have programs or something that they run like essays or homework through to like determine if it's they're just copying it out of just using Chat GPT or copying it out of something and pasting. And there was a parent who had posted that they knew for sure that the kid had not used like Chat GPT to create this essay, let's say, but the kid was being accused by the school of using Chat GPT, and there was this post they had done, and then there was also comments from other parents of neurodiverse students who had similar situations. I mean, have you heard anything like that where there's like biases and different things that maybe harm neurodivergent individuals in some of the AI programs and stuff?
Are you asking if because the way an autistic child wrote, it looked like it was AI and it's being misidentified?
I mean, there's that part, but I guess maybe also a larger discussion. I mean, it's like that large language model. I mean, somebody created that. I'm assuming like with certain parameters. Is there like biases built into some of that stuff as well?
Well, the term bias is thrown around, and we know what bias is as humans. When they say bias with regard to technology or machines, it's just a tendency to go one way or the other. Kind of like the bias on my tires is actually a name. It causes my car set up to ride a certain way.
Sure.
So there's a couple layers to that question, Aaron. One, whether that person used ChatGPT to create their essay. I mean, I don't know, you don't know, and honestly, their parents probably don't even know. Sure. I think that those are exceptions that make headlines on the evils of technology, but I really see technology as a positive, and that's where it takes again about 15 years for it to layer in and be accepted. Back when I was in 7th grade, Aaron, I used to wear a watch, and it was a calculator watch by Casio. It was just a basic calculator that you can literally buy for $1 today.
Super tiny buttons, right? Like
super tiny buttons. Yeah, you remember them.
I remember.
Yeah. And there was talk that we can't give calculators to students because it keeps them from learning. But looking back here, 40 years later, psychologists and teaching professionals have found out that if we allow students to use calculators, after they understand the basics and they use calculators, it helps them to learn further. So take care of the little stuff and allows them to look at bigger, like calculus and high level math that others wouldn't get to, because all of us have so much time on earth, so many steps that we take. And if we spend steps doing the minutia, we can't create big stuff. So that's my connector back from the 80s and 90s. But today I see that same thing. We're going to find out that, and good teachers have already embraced. I'm not going to scratch that. I'm not saying good teacher, bad teacher. Let's just say teachers that are on the edge of technology have embraced using ChatGPT. And in the same realm, business marketing has, authors have, anybody that writes for a living know that they're going to use these AI to help create. And where it comes in handy is being able to say, all right, ChatGPT, give me 10 thesis titles that I can work on for my 9-week project. And then boom, 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 boom. And what it is, it's a soundboarding session by myself, or for the student, it's a soundboarding session for them, because most students, even regardless of what schools they're at or what demographics they live in, they're still doing all their homework themselves, which it's important to be responsible to do things yourself. But what we're learning today, it's more important to work with others, and that with others today actually means AI. So use AI to generate ideas, use AI to critique the language that you have and give tips. I don't believe that any of us, for any reason, should just be throwing in a question and then cutting and pasting into a social media post or a school project. We should still be engaged with it, but it's a tool. So that's a long story of my thoughts on AI. There, it's ultimately everybody's going to see it's here to serve us, to serve humans.
Yeah, for sure. The other piece about that calculator thing I remember growing up in school is they also told us that you're not always gonna have a calculator in your pocket, so we need to teach you how to do it on paper. And now it's like we all have a calculator in our pockets. So.
Yeah, we do.
We showed you that one, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you envision for the future of AI in neurodivergent spaces, not just as a coping mechanism, but as a tool for creativity, earning, and self-advocacy?
Well, that's a wide question there. Let me start with the autism realm. There's organizations that I've partnered with that we're taking PocketMentor and allowing this voice AI to ingest how to handle new job situations from an autistic standpoint. Let's say that it's kind of like an HR diversity inclusion buddy.
Sure.
It's a chance for a new hire into a company to call a phone number and hear all about the DEI programs and processes and vision and mission statement, et cetera, for a company. And at the same time, it's a way for the manager of somebody who, now that we're telling people that we're autistic, it's a way for a manager to call up PocketMentor and say, hey, I have an autistic employee. It's my first ever. I want to make sure I treat him right. What's some best practices and some tips? And it's like it's like having a coach. 5 minutes before you talk to somebody, it's like, remind me again what's important. Great. Because employees and their managers and everybody that's involved in the company, they're all focused on what they're doing. And they forget sometimes how to deal with people. And when you have a special situation, when we're sharing that we're autistic, how do I speak correctly? How do I ask questions correctly? I think my supervisor, Kim Chavez, that I had worked for back in the day, she would overlook my deficits and embrace my wins, because certain things, we can do twice as well as anybody else.
Right.
And if we get judged by what we do well and not what we do bad, that's
Sure.
kind of the basics. So AI involved in that just helps us keep on point. It's literally a helper, right? In 1969, I think it was, when 2001 Space Odyssey came out, and we had HAL, which was the first virtual assistant that I'm aware of. Now, there's probably others before that, but that was the big screen. So today, we have watched for 50, 60, 70 years these virtual assistants that, like my son, when he plays Halo, the Halo character taps himself on the wrist and a little hologram pops up and advises him on how to play and where to go. And we're there today. We've hit that singularity point with AI. That's the big part here, is that all of us now have a coach in our corner that we can talk to, and we don't have to be afraid. We don't have to worry about being judged. I think it was the New England Journal of Medicine or New England Journal of Psychology had a paper that talked about, we get better help for counselors, mentors, therapists through AI than we do talking to a human. Because one, there's the barrier of seeing a human, scheduling time, anxiety, money. And with AI, it's just a machine. AI is not going to judge me. AI can give me answers. And a lot of therapy and counseling is the individual being able to share and get things off their chest. So that's the direction I see AI at, Aaron, is as an individual support agent for all of us that's trained exactly on us.
Yeah, I love that. What is one tip you can share to help the listeners be more inclusive today? So just something anybody can start doing today to be more inclusive.
Inclusive. That's a great question. While I was at Amazon, I took part And part of what we taught, part of the onboarding program that I created, I had a session on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I was a little bit put off, like, why do we have to have a special training for DEI? Why do we have to have a special training on wheelchair access? Why do we have a special training on this or that? And I look at it more granular. My piece of advice is to treat everybody, give them the benefit of the doubt for one, set aside any judgment before you start a conversation, and just treat them as an individual and give them a chance to show you what they are and put them at ease so they can speak their mind and just accept that. So I think if we do that, it covers inclusion and it covers the special cases that have really been no more than buzzwords as it's flown through corporate America. The want to have training is great, but the actual effect of that training is a lot of times just kind of filling boxes with checks rather than doing good. So yeah, we should just treat everybody like they want to be treated, and we got to find out how that is just by asking them.
Yeah, I love that. Where's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
For me, they can connect with me right on the website. It's practicalai.app, just phonetically like it sounds, practicalai.app. So it's Apple Paul, practicalai.app. And they can connect with me there. They can also find me on LinkedIn. Just look for my name and Practical AI. There's not a lot of Derek Cragers out there. Okay. And I invite you to ping me, connect with me, and ask questions, and let me know how I can help you.
Absolutely. Ready for the last question?
Please, bring it on.
Do you like Spam lunch meat, yes or no?
I do, yes.
Wow, that's quick. I live near Austin, Minnesota, where Hormel's located, where they make Spam and where the Spam Museum is located. So I've been asking all my guests that question. It's fun to see the reaction. It's usually quick yes or no, or I've never tried it. That's the three.
Yeah, I bet a lot of people didn't even know it was actual meat. It was they thought it was just email.
That's also happened to me because it's been a while, but I had a Spam shirt on for this lunch meet, and somebody asked me when I was out walking at a mall or something, like, is that the lunch meat or the email? I was like, wow, I've never had that question. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I had a lot of fun.
This was fun, Aaron. Thank you very much. I wish you continued success.
Thanks. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.